You know, as the session winds to an end, and we will adjourn and then go into special session and then recess probably Wednesday the 21st. You know, one of the items that came up, constantly came up over the last 3 or 4 weeks, was that we're not going to have a budget, we're not going to have a budget. I got to tell you something. We are farther along now towards having a budget than we were in 04, 06, 01, and 2008. Okay? We are farther along now than we were then. When we come back on the 21st, we will begin moving, towards some finality on the budget. It'll take, maybe a few days or maybe even a week or so to iron out details, but it will happen, and it will happen well in advance of the years that I just referenced. So that's the fact that we weren't going to have a budget simply was inaccurate. On top of that, keep in mind, this is March, 10th, and we have till July 1st. Now the conferees, which currently right now are the Senate Democratic conferees, are Senator Howe and Senator Colgan. I may join it when we come back. But I feel that we accomplished an awful lot in this session, and Senator Howe and Senator McEachin are going to go over some of that, and then I may discuss some more at the end. Jen? Or Don? Jen. Okay.
When Senate Democrats came down here several weeks ago, we were focused on jobs and public education, seriously addressing our transportation crisis and repairing our tattered safety net. Instead, we were faced with an onslaught of extreme social agenda bills. Who would have expected that the Democrats would have been able to defeat so many key Republican initiatives? In fact, last November, the day after the election, Lieutenant Governor Bolin said, "Make no mistake about it, there is a Republican majority in the Senate." Well, that kind of arrogance didn't yield results on a lot of the Republicans' most important legislation. We Democrats defeated many extreme, divisive Republican bills. Here are some examples of those extreme, divisive bills that we defeated. House Bill 1, personhood, was passed by for the year. Senate Bill 637, banning abortions after 20 weeks, was defeated in education and health. HPV vaccine immunizations, getting rid of the requirement for 5th grade girls to have them, was passed by for the year. The Trigger Man bill on the death penalty was defeated in Senate courts. The Castle Doctrine passed by for the year. The Teacher Contracts Bill re-referred back to committee, and the Arizona-style immigration law was passed by for the year. Elections do have consequences. The deck has been stacked against us, but we have succeeded in defeating many, many outrageous bills.
Thank you, Senator Sasslaw and Senator Howe. I just want to add that I am so proud of this Senate Democratic Caucus. 20 men and women working to advance the priorities of Virginia. And the reason we were able to do the things that Senator Howe just talked about is because of our unity and our single-minded purpose of trying to advance an agenda for all Virginians. It is certainly true that the Republicans engaged in massive overreach, engaging and putting forth bills that the people of Virginia simply didn't want. I think there was no moment that made us more proud as senators of Virginia than when the 1,000 men and women sort of spontaneously came up to this Capitol and literally were the wind underneath our wings to give us the encouragement to keep pressing on and keep advancing our agenda and resisting what the Republicans were trying to send to us. What we would leave the people of Virginia with is this: we must remain vigilant. Those bills will be back next year. We will have to redouble our efforts to defeat bills like personhood and to defeat other socially divisive ideas that the Republicans will put forth. But our promise to you is this, that this Senate Democratic Caucus will return 20 people strong and will return with the purpose of trying to make sure that Virginia remains the best state to do business, that Virginia remains the best place to raise a child, and that Virginia is no longer the brunt of Saturday Night Live and other late night shows. And we're happy to take your questions. I'm sorry, Senator Sassalon.
One other thing. You know, when you look at what the governor's agenda, you know, was for the year, you know, he pretty much put forward a plan that I could have predicted last summer. In fact, I did. The rate on the general fund for transportation. He got turned down by that. Not just turned down by our party, he was turned down by his own party in the Senate. It wasn't just the Democrats, it was the Republicans as well. They did not want to see this general fund rate. The only thing left of that, the only thing good you could say about that transportation bill was it wasn't as bad as the ultrasound bill. I mean, that's the best thing you can say about it. All he's got left in it is naming rights. That's all that's left. I mean, it's silly. It's just plain silly. The retirement, I mean, they wanted to go after existing government employees. They couldn't get that. They didn't even get that. And again, it wasn't just Senate Democrat, his own party. I mean, he came up with an agenda that pretty much reflects that wing, you know, that ideological wing of the party for which he belongs, which is the far right. And he ran, I mean, he not only ran into what you would call, he not only ran into the united opposition in the Democratic Party, he not only ran into opposition from some of the moderate Republicans, some of the ones that began to move over to the conservative wing voted to recommit those bills because they knew they were bad. And this is a problem. And as Senator McEachin said, they'll be back next year. And he may have a harder time next year than he had this year. So we think that we did a good job. There's still ongoing discussions, you know, concerning committee assignments. That's not off the table. We're still talking about that. We just didn't link it. And you all were the ones that accused us, not you all, I mean, a lot of the Republicans accused us of linking that totally with the budget. As you can see, that's not the case. So we feel that, I mean, and the budget, I mean, when you take a look at what has been restored in the Senate budget, and it'll stay in, when you take a look at what was restored in that Senate budget, I would say we did a pretty good job of leveraging our position. So anyways, as Senator McEachin said, we'll take your questions. No questions? Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't run over here quite fast enough.
Does anybody want to talk to the thing?
First remarks, that's all Hannah tweeted it. So you're saying the budget would happen quickly and that you would be...
Well, it's moving in the right direction. I can't give you a correct time, but I can tell you we're farther ahead now than we were in the times that were referenced by the governor.
Why do you think it did not get done on time? To what do you attribute it to? The Republicans say it's because you were holding it up as a stance on power sharing in the Senate. What's your explanation for why it didn't get done on time?
Let me tell you this. It'll be a few days late. If you make a week or two late. Let me tell you, states half our size with 6-month sessions can't get done or will get done in probably close to 70 legislative days. I mean, what's the big deal? Last year we finished, you know, what were you, a day late? The year before, 2 days late? I mean, come on.
What will it take to get Democratic votes to get this budget out of the Senate and then approved?
Well, I think the adoption of our amendments, which I think will happen, then it goes to conference. And that the things that items we put in there are going to have to stay in there. They don't lose, you know, they won't get through. But we didn't put in there anything that I think was unreasonable. Look at some of the things we did. The governor's original bill knocked 4,500 people out of nursing homes, Medicaid types, by reducing, you know, the guidelines from 300% of the poverty level back to 250. We moved it back. Home health care people. You know, they don't get vacations, they don't get benefits, they don't get anything. We put money in there to help them. okay? SOQ funding, okay? I told the governor in that letter it was totally unrealistic for him to assume that no inflation exists because he didn't want to use the normal rebenching one. That got put back. The local cost to compete put back in there. For only the second time in our history, we have mandated a medical procedure, okay? A medical procedure. And contrary to what some of them claim, immunization is not a medical procedure. Okay, the other time we did this was when we mandated from 1924 to 1974 forced sterilization over 7,000 people, mentally retarded people. Okay? We then spent the next 28 years apologizing for that, and it was culminated with Governor Warner finally issuing a proclamation apologizing to the families that was done to. The ultrasound mandate now joins that. Now, we didn't make those families pay for the forced sterilization, and we ought not to make these people pay for that, but I would be willing to accept in the budget that they mandate the insurance companies to pay for that. And the estimated cost of that is probably going to run, if the insurance companies do it, the cost of the state will be a little over $1 million, which is basically Medicaid, people. If the state paid for it all and didn't mandate it, it would be around $12 million. But all these things and more got put back into the budget. So I would say that we were fairly successful. Was it worth, maybe an extra, week or two before, or 2 weeks, 3 weeks before we have a budget? Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't apologize for that one bit. So I think it worked pretty well. Janet?
In regards to the committee assignments, are you willing to go along with the budget with an informal agreement or an understanding?
I'm not going to comment on that. There's just ongoing discussions, and I'm not going to comment any further than that.
Regardless of who's at fault, and both sides are pointing the finger of blame, there are folks who have been around this Capitol for a while who say that this process, this partisanship, this bitterness sets a really bad precedent. When you go back to your districts, when you address your constituents, and they say to you, even if I'm on your side, I agree with the stand you've taken, this just reflects poorly on us. How do you respond to that?
First off, you're giving it a lot more importance than my constituents will. The people who quote, who will say that they won't. Particularly when you consider that we didn't have a budget in 2004 until 55 days after we left here, okay, which pushed it into May. We didn't have one for 102 days, which pushed it almost near the end of June. And they're going to worry about one that's probably going to be done by the end of March.
I'm not talking about the lateness. I'm talking about just the intense partisanship.
You know what? The story is, the whole story on that is right here in this room and on the 3rd floor. Okay? I have not gotten one email that wasn't what you call generated email. I have not gotten this. When you're getting 100 emails and every one of them says the exact identical thing, period for period, comma for comma, guess what? It wasn't spontaneous. It was generated. Okay? I didn't just get here from Mars, ladies and gentlemen. I've been around here for a while. Before some of you were even born. Okay?
Senator, what's non-negotiable going forward? If you're talking about budget, you've laid out your amendments. The governor has already said that a number of them don't fly by his recollection. You've said that there are a number of them that you think you need. What is non-negotiable right now?
I don't want to get into what's non-negotiable. We know what we need, okay? And I'm not going to get into naming specific items. We will do fairly well. And quite frankly, the Senate Republicans don't disagree with this at all. And quite frankly, I've had quite a few House Republicans say, don't back down. House Republicans.
What is the time frame under discussion for coming back?
We're talking about coming back the 21st.
To vote on a budget? Or
well,
continue talks?
we would report it out, and we go in, we put it in conference, And a lot of that, the staff does that, and it would only involve the conferees.
Okay,
So,
so
in other words,
conferees would
the
do that.
people aren't going to stay here, the members aren't going to stay here during that. When we get something done, then the members will come back.
I guess that's my question, are you expecting all the members to come back by the?
They'll all come back on the 21st, but they
Okay,
may not stay here.
Okay.
Right.
so you would report the budget out of committee on the 20th?
And off the floor.
Okay,
We, move the calendar.
So it might be some time after that before you actually.
No, they'll name the conferees right then and there, and we'll get to work. My guess would be, if you look at a lot of these items, probably a week and a half should be done. I would not be surprised to see this thing done by the end of March. Max. It's not a big deal. People would like to make it a big deal, but it's not a big deal.
Well, the big deal is the people of Virginia are going to benefit by our standing by them for this additional time, for getting additional money for public education, for health and human services, to make sure that the women who are being forced to have unwanted ultrasounds will have them, at least have them paid for. So the big beneficiaries of this are going to be the people of Virginia. And I really feel they're right at my back, they're right with me, and they're saying, you stick by it, girl.
Other questions?
Thank you all very much.
All right.